I didn't expect my life to change in a single evening. But the moment I stepped into that boardroom, everything I had ever known shattered into pieces. My father sat at the head of the table, cold and calculating as always. My mother stood beside him, arms crossed, her expression smug. And then there was my brother, Adam, the family's golden boy, lounging in his chair like he had already won whatever twisted game they were playing. "Sit," my father ordered. Something felt off. I could feel it in my bones. But I sat down. The folder was slid across the table towards me. I frowned, flipping it open. My heart stopped. I was staring at a legal document, a transfer of all my inheritance, my trust fund, my shares in the company, everything that belonged to me. And it was all going to Adam. What the hell is this? My voice was sharp, but inside, my stomach twisted. Adam smirked. "That, dear sister, is your exit plan?" I looked up at my parents, hoping, praying, that this was some cruel joke. But my father's expression was cold as steel. My mother sighed, as if I were an inconvenience she wished would just disappear. "It's what's best," my father said. "For the family." "For the family? What about me? You expect me to sign this?" I scoffed, pushing the papers away. "Are you insane?" My mother stepped forward. "You were never meant to lead, Anna. You're just not capable." Capable? I had been running operations at the company since I was 21. I had worked twice as hard as Adam, proving myself every step of the way. I clenched my fists. "This is a joke. I built my reputation in this company. Adam cut me off with a laugh. "You mean our reputation? Everything you did was because of Dad's name." I felt something crack inside me. All my life, I had fought to prove I wasn't just the daughter of a powerful businessman. I had fought to prove that I deserved my place at the top. And now they were ripping it all away. My father slid a pen across the table. "Sign?" "No." His expression darkened. "You don't have a choice." And that was when I realized they had already won. I didn't sign right away. I fought. I screamed. I threatened. I even begged. But my father? He had already pulled all the strings. Bank accounts? Frozen. Credit cards?
Declined.
My personal assets?
Seized.
In a single night, I went from being the heir to a billion-dollar empire to having nothing. Not even a place to stay. And the worst part? No one cared. Not my so-called friends. Not the people I had helped. Not even the company's employees I had fought for. I was a nobody. My father's last words to me before I walked out of the mansion still echoed in my head. "You were never meant to be more than a placeholder, Anna. Now get out." For weeks, I drifted. I found a cheap motel that smelled like mold, using the last bit of cash I had to keep a roof over my head. I applied for jobs. No one would hire me. My father had made sure of that. Everywhere I went, I hit a dead end. My name, the name that once meant everything, was now a curse. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering, was this it? Was this how my story ended? And then, one night, I looked at myself in the mirror. The girl staring back at me wasn't the same. She was broken, defeated. I gritted my teeth.
No.
I wasn't going to let them win. If they thought I was going to fade away quietly, they were wrong. Very, very wrong. I had nothing. But if there was one thing I still had, it was my mind. My family had underestimated me. They thought I had no power without them. But what they didn't realize was, I was smarter than all of them. With the little money I had left, I started working my way up from scratch. I took night shifts at a local cafe, using every spare second to learn everything about the business world. I studied corporate takeovers, financial loopholes, stock manipulation, everything they had used to keep me down. And after months of working like hell, I finally had my first breakthrough. A new opportunity. A way back into the game. And the best part? They wouldn't see me coming. Months passed and I barely survived. Every dollar was stretched. Every meal was a calculation. But I never stopped learning. One night, while working the late shift at the cafe, I overheard two businessmen talking about a struggling tech startup. I had nothing to lose. So I took a risk. Using the last bit of cash I had, I bought shares in the startup. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I spent nights researching, days networking, doing everything I could to turn that tiny investment into something bigger. And one day, it happened. The startup exploded in value. Overnight, I went from broke and desperate to having enough to start something of my own. It wasn't revenge yet, but it was the first step. With my first real money, I knew I had one chance. One chance to build something powerful. I started small, a consulting firm, using the knowledge I had gained from years in my father's company. At first, no one took me seriously, until they saw what I could do. I tripled profits for small businesses, helped companies recover from financial disasters, and within a year, my name was back. But this time, it was mine, not my father's. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was gaining power. And once I had enough, I was going to destroy them. By the second year, my company had become one of the most sought-after firms in the city. People who had once turned their backs on me, now they begged to work with me. Investors poured in. I expanded, moved into high-stakes corporate takeovers, and learned how to dismantle empires from the inside out. And as fate would have it, my father's company was struggling. The golden boy, Adam, was failing. And that's when I saw my opening. It was time to strike. It started with small, quiet moves. I bought shares in my father's company through shell corporations, making sure they had no idea who was behind it. Piece by piece, I gained control. And then, one day, I owned a majority of the company. My father? He had no idea. Adam? Clueless. They thought they were still untouchable. Until the board called for a vote of no confidence. And the new CEO was announced.
Me.
The day I walked into the boardroom, everything stopped. My father's face went pale. My mother clutched Adam's arm, her breath caught in her throat. And Adam? He looked at me like he had seen a ghost. This isn't possible, he stammered. I smiled. Oh, but it is. For the first time in my life, I had all the power. And they had none. I sat at the head of the table where my father once ruled. He sat across from me, his hands trembling. You can't do this, he whispered. I leaned forward. I already did. Every ounce of betrayal, pain, and suffering they had put me through, it was finally their turn to feel it. And I was just getting started. Silence filled the boardroom. For the first time in my life, they had no control over me. My father gripped the table so hard his knuckles turned white. You don't understand what you've done. I tilted my head. Oh, I understand perfectly. Adam's arrogance shattered in an instant. The once smug brother, who had laughed as he stole everything from me, now he looked like a child who had just realized the monsters under his bed were real. My mother?
She didn't speak.
Her face was twisted in shock, as if she couldn't comprehend that the daughter they had discarded had returned more powerful than they ever imagined. I leaned back in my chair, looking at their stunned faces. This moment, this was everything. But I wasn't done yet. My father's company, now mine, was drowning in debt, thanks to Adam's terrible leadership. I had two choices. Save it and let them crawl back to their comfortable lives. Tear it down piece by piece and leave them with nothing. Guess which one I chose? I announced an internal restructuring, one that included firing Adam. You can't do this. Adam exploded, slamming his fists on the table. I stared at him. You did it to me. His lips parted, but no words came out. Now he understood. I didn't just fire Adam. I made sure everyone knew about it. The media ate it up. Billionaire heiress Anna takes over, fires brother, who betrayed her. Fall of a golden boy. Adam gets kicked out of his own companies. The same way they humiliated me years ago, I returned the favor. And my father? He tried to hold on, tried to fight back. But he was old news now. No one respected him anymore. Because I was the one in power. One by one, I took everything from them. Their business?
Gone.
Their fortune? Vanishing fast. Their power? Stripped away. They had spent their lives belittling me, underestimating me, throwing me away like I was nothing.
Now?
They were the ones no one cared about. I found my father in his office, staring at the empty walls. The once mighty man who had controlled everything now had nothing left. He turned when I walked in, his eyes tired. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" I didn't answer immediately. Then I smiled. "I am." He let out a bitter laugh. "So, what now? You destroy us completely." I stared at him for a long moment. Once, I had desperately craved his approval.
Now?
He was just another man I had beaten. I had won. I expected Adam to fight back, to try and reclaim what he lost. Instead, he showed up at my office. His confidence?
Gone.
His arrogance? Shattered. He looked at me like a drowning man begging for a lifeline. "Anna, please." His voice was hoarse. "I don't have anything left." I leaned forward. "Now you know how it feels." He swallowed hard. I was wrong. I should have never. I held up a hand. "Stop." I studied him for a long moment. Then I gave him the same cold smile he once gave me. "You're just a nobody now." And I walked away. With my father's company fully under my control, I did what no one expected. I merged it into my empire, erasing my father's legacy completely. His name? Wiped from the business world. My family, who once controlled everything, now had nothing. And I was untouchable. Adam tried to find another job. No one would hire him. My father tried to rebuild his connections. No one returned his calls. My mother? She went silent. They had made me a nobody. Now they were the nobodies. And I had built an empire.
All on my own.
Years ago, they laughed when I was thrown out with nothing. Now, they whispered my name in fear. I wasn't just another rich heiress anymore. I was the woman who came back stronger than ever. And no one, not my family, not anyone, could take that away from me again. One day, I stood outside the mansion I had once called home. It felt small now. I didn't need it anymore. Because I had built something greater. I had built myself. I turned away, my heart light. My past didn't define me anymore. I had won. And there was nothing left to say. I stood outside the estate, the place that once held all my childhood memories, my pain, my betrayal. It used to feel like a fortress. A kingdom that only my father ruled.
Now?
It was just a house. An empty, lifeless structure. A part of me thought I'd feel satisfaction seeing it this way. But all I felt was nothing. Because I didn't need this house anymore. I had built my own empire. And I had erased theirs. I thought Adam would disappear after everything. But he didn't. One evening, as I left my office, I saw him waiting outside. He looked different. Gone was the arrogant, entitled man who had laughed as he stole my inheritance. In his place was someone broken. "I know I don't deserve to ask for anything," he said, his voice quiet. "But please, I don't have anywhere else to go." For a brief second, I remembered the brother I used to have. The one before the greed. The one before he saw me as a threat. And for that second, I almost felt pity. But then I remembered the way he smirked as I signed those papers. The way he told me, "You're just a nobody now." And I smiled. That's not my problem. Then I got in my car and left him there, just like he left me. Out of everyone in my family, my mother was the one who surprised me the most.
She didn't beg.
She didn't try to manipulate her way back into my life. She simply disappeared. I heard rumors. She had left the city, moved somewhere quiet, far away from the chaos. But I didn't care. Because I was finally free from her. One day, I received a letter. It was from my father. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the best of me. Inside, his handwriting was shaky, not the confident, commanding script I remembered. "Anna, you were always smarter than I gave you credit for. And now you've proven that to the world. I have nothing left. No company, no wealth, no family. Maybe I deserve that. Maybe this was my punishment. But I hope, someday, you'll remember that I was still your father. And maybe, just maybe, you'll forgive me." I read the letter twice. Then I burned it. Forgiveness? That wasn't something he had ever given me. And I wasn't about to give it to him now. With my father's business erased and my name now a legend in the corporate world, I felt something I hadn't felt in years.
Peace.
I had fought. I had suffered. I had lost everything. But in the end, I had rebuilt myself. Not as a daughter. Not as an heiress. But as a self-made woman who had taken on giants and won. Months later, I found myself walking into a new boardroom. But this time, it was my company. I was no longer the girl begging for a place at the table. I owned the damn table. My executive stood when I entered. And as I took my seat at the head of the boardroom, I smiled. I had rewritten my own story. One evening, as I sat in my penthouse, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. Hello. There was silence. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years. Anna. I froze. It was my mother. My mother's voice was quiet, hesitant. I just wanted to hear your voice, she said.
I didn't say anything.
She sighed. I know I don't deserve to ask for anything. I know I was cruel. I cut her off. Manipulative. Heartless. Silence. Then, softly, she said, yes. I waited. I just wanted you to know, she continued, that I regret everything. And I'm sorry. The words should have meant something. But they didn't. Because it was too late. So I said nothing. And then I hung up. The world had tried to break me. My own family had tried to erase me. But in the end, I had risen. I had built something that no one could take from me. And for the first time in my life, I was truly free. I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, looking out at the city skyline. Everything I had now, I had earned it. And I wasn't afraid anymore. Because I knew one thing for sure. I had survived the worst. And no one would ever make me a nobody again.
The sound ripped through the driveway like a blade. Screech! My heart plummeted as I spun around just in time to see my younger sister, Megan, scrape the side of my brand new black SUV against the garage wall. A long silver scar stretched across the paint, glaring at me in the sunlight like a wound. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Megan, I shouted, rushing forward, my pulse racing. What did you just do? She climbed out of the driver's seat with a smirk, brushing her blonde hair back as if she'd done nothing wrong. Relax, Claire. It still works. It's not like I totaled it. Her voice dripped with mockery, as though years of my sacrifice, saving, and hustling meant nothing. My throat tightened. That's not the point. You don't just... Before I could finish, my mom stepped out of the kitchen door, arms crossed, lips curved in a familiar, dismissive smile. Oh, stop it, Claire, Mom said, chuckling under her breath. She didn't mean to. Don't blow. This out of proportion. The words landed like daggers. My SUV wasn't just a car. It was the symbol of everything I'd worked for. Every late shift, every skipped meal, every night I told myself that one day I'd have something of my own. That vehicle was my pride, my proof that I wasn't the failure they painted me to be. But in this family, Megan could do no wrong, and my victories were always minimized. Megan smirked wider, tossing her keys into her hand. Seriously, Claire, don't cry. Nobody cares about scratches. Nobody cared. That was the cruel truth echoing in my head. My nails dug into my palms as I fought the tears burning in my eyes. My chest ached with unspoken words, the kind I'd learned to swallow since childhood. And then, the front door creaked open. Ethan, my husband, stepped in, his tall frame commanding the space instantly. His eyes locked on me first, noticing the tears I tried to blink away, then flicked to the SUV in the driveway. His jaw set like stone. What happened? His voice was low but sharp, the kind of tone that made everyone freeze. Megan snorted. It's just a scratch. No big deal. Mom chuckled again, waving her hand. Exactly. Claire is overreacting as usual. Megan didn't mean to. But Ethan didn't smile. He didn't shrug. He turned slowly, his gaze slicing through their arrogance like a knife. Then I guess, he said, voice calm yet heavy enough to silence the air. It's time to explain whose car that really was. The room went still. Megan's smirk faltered. Mom's confidence cracked. My heart hammered in my chest, because the truth Ethan was about to reveal would shatter every illusion they held about me. The silence that followed Ethan's words was deafening. Even the ticking clock on the wall seemed louder, each second slicing through the tension. Megan forced a laugh, flipping her hair. What's that supposed to mean? It's Claire's car, isn't it? She probably saved her waitress tips for years to buy it. Her voice dripped with cruelty, each word meant to cut me down. My fists clenched, but Ethan stepped closer, his gaze fixed on her. You think you're entitled to treat it like a toy because you assume it's Claire's? You're wrong. Mom frowned, confusion flashing across her face. Ethan, don't be ridiculous. She worked 2 jobs for that car, didn't she? We all know it's hers. Ethan's lips curved into the faintest smile, but it wasn't amusement, it was steel. No, Karen. That SUV isn't Claire's, it's mine. Megan blinked, caught, off guard. Yours? Then why let her drive it? Because I wanted her to have it, Ethan replied, his voice calm but firm. Because she deserves more than she's ever been given in this family. That SUV was a gift, a statement, and you treated it like garbage. My throat tightened. I'd known Ethan bought the SUV in my name, but hearing him defend me with such force, in front of the people who never valued me, sent a tremor through my chest. Mom's smirk faltered, replaced by irritation. Oh, come on, Ethan. It's not that deep. Megan made a mistake. Don't turn this into a morality lecture. But Ethan didn't budge. He stepped closer to the two of them, his presence almost suffocating in the room. It is that deep. You laugh when Claire's hurt. You minimize her struggles. You've turned every achievement of hers into a punchline. But you're quick to excuse Megan's carelessness no matter how much damage she causes. Megan scoffed, trying to regain her footing. You're acting like I crashed it into a pole. It's a scratch. Get over it. Ethan's eyes hardened. That's the problem. You think everything can be brushed aside. But let me make this clear. You didn't just scratch a car. You disrespected what Claire has worked for, what she's endured. And you disrespected me by treating my gift to her like it meant nothing. The words slammed into the room like thunder. Megan looked away, her arrogance cracking. Mom's jaw tightened, as if she couldn't find the right excuse fast. Enough? I stood frozen, my chest burning with a mix of vindication and grief. For once, someone was saying out loud everything I'd kept buried, every injustice, every dismissal, every time I'd been made to feel small in my own family. You're overreacting, Mom muttered, her voice weaker now. No, Ethan said, sharply. I'm finally reacting, because Claire has stayed quiet too long, and it's time this family understood that silence doesn't mean weakness. My breath hitched. Tears pricked my eyes, but this time they weren't from humiliation. They were from the power of finally being seen. Megan shifted uncomfortably, her bravado gone. So what? You want me to apologize? She muttered. Ethan's voice dropped low. No, I don't want forced words. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. If this SUV isn't respected, then neither of you will ever step near it again. And if you can't treat Claire with the respect she deserves, then don't expect to be welcome in our lives moving forward. The room fell silent again, but this time it wasn't confusion. It was fear. Mom's face tightened, her pride battling with the reality of Ethan's words. Megan stayed quiet, for once unable to come up with a snide remark. And me. I stood there, my hands trembling. But for the first time, I didn't feel powerless. For the first time, I felt like maybe this was the beginning of something different. The weight of Ethan's words hung heavy in the air. My sister's smirk had vanished, and even Mom looked unsettled, her arms still folded but not as steady as before. For once, they weren't laughing at me. They were cornered. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering in my ears. I'd spent years biting my tongue, letting insults slide, letting humiliation roll off me. But Ethan's defense lit something inside me, a fire that refused to be smothered anymore. I stepped forward. You know, what? My voice trembled at first, but then it grew stronger. I've stayed quiet because I thought silence kept the peace. But peace doesn't exist when only one person is expected to sacrifice for it. Mom blinked, surprised by my tone. Megan rolled her eyes, but the flush in her cheeks betrayed her. All my life, I continued, you've belittled everything I've done. Every job, every milestone, every moment I was proud of. You laughed. You acted like I was lucky to exist in your shadow. But today, I realized something. I took a shaky breath. The only reason you laugh is because deep down you're terrified. Terrified that maybe I'm stronger than you ever wanted me to be. Don't start with the dramatics, Claire, Mom snapped, her voice sharp but cracking at the edges. This isn't drama, I shot back louder this time. This is truth. Megan, you think scratching my SUV is nothing, but it's not about the car. It's about the years of disrespect, the years of taking and never giving back. And Mom, every time you excuse her, you tell me I don't matter. Well, I do. I matter more than you'll ever admit. Megan's lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked small, like the arrogance she wore had slipped right off her shoulders. Ethan placed his hand lightly on my back, grounding me, but he didn't interrupt. His silence was his support. I turned my gaze directly on my mom. You always said family comes first, but you never treated me like family. You treated me like an afterthought, the one who was supposed to endure everything quietly. That ends today. The room went still. My words echoed like a verdict. Mom opened her mouth, searching for control. You're being ungrateful, Claire. We've given you everything. Everything? I cut her off, my voice rising with years of bottled pain. What exactly did you give me? Constant comparison to Megan. Being told I wasn't good enough no matter how hard I worked? You didn't give me love. You gave me lessons in survival. And now I've survived long enough to finally stand here and say, I don't need your approval anymore. The fire in sea. My chest spread to my throat, my words sharper than I'd ever dared before. Megan muttered, You're just overreacting. I snapped my gaze to her. No, Megan, I'm done underreacting. You've coasted on excuses, on being the golden child, but one day excuses won't cover you. You'll realize life isn't about who laughs the loudest. It's about who stands the tallest when no one else will. Ethan's voice finally joined mine, steady and final. Claire has given this family more grace than you deserve. But she's not going to carry your disrespect anymore. From this moment forward, things change. Either you learn to respect her, or you lose her. The silence afterward wasn't just heavy, it was suffocating. Mom's jaw worked, but no words came out. Megan's eyes darted toward the scratched SUV, then back at me, as though she realized for the first time that her actions had real consequences. And me? For the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet one in the corner. I wasn't the girl, holding back tears. I was the woman who had finally spoken, finally fought, finally claimed her worth, and I wasn't going back. The air was thick enough to choke on. My mother's face had gone pale, her lips pressed tight, while Megan's bravado had crumbled into silence. For once, I wasn't the one standing small in their presence. I drew in a slow breath, steadying myself. Ethan's right. Things change now. I've spent years letting your words cut me down, but not anymore. I've built a life outside this house, one that you never cared to see. And from this day forward, I won't let you trample over it. Ethan's hand squeezed mine firmly, and that small gesture gave me the strength to continue. Mom scoffed, but the crack in her voice betrayed her. So what, Claire? You're just going to cut us off? Over a car? I shook my head. This was never about the car. It's about respect. It's about dignity. You could have asked me how much that SUV meant to me. You could have apologized. But instead, you laughed. You always laugh when it comes to me. Well, the laughter ends here. Megan's voice finally broke the silence, smaller than I'd ever heard it. So, what do you want? Do you want me to beg? To say sorry? I turned to her, my tone firm but calm. I don't want words, Megan. I want growth. I want you to realize that carelessness isn't cute, that taking people for granted has consequences, and that I'm not your punching bag anymore. Her eyes flickered, guilt flashing briefly before she looked away. Ethan stepped in, his voice sharp but even. Here's the bottom line. Claire deserves more than excuses. If you can't offer her real respect, then stay out of her life. Because we're done entertaining people who only show up to tear her down. The statement hit like a hammer. Mom flinched, her pride visibly crumbling. Megan sank back into the couch, staring at the floor. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of the refrigerator and the faint rustle of the trees outside. It felt like the house itself was holding its breath. I finally exhaled and said the words I'd been too afraid to speak my whole life. You don't get to decide my worth anymore. I do. And I refuse to spend another day being treated as less. The relief that surged through me was indescribable. It wasn't just about defending my car or even my dignity. It was about reclaiming every piece of myself they had tried to strip away. Mom shifted, her voice quieter now. Claire, you're being harsh. I shook my head. No, Mom. I'm being honest. Something you never allowed me to be without ridicule. Ethan wrapped an arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. His steady presence reminded me I wasn't alone in this fight. Not anymore. I looked at Megan one last time. You think everything's a joke until reality smacks you in the face. Maybe this will be your wake-up call. But whether you change or not, I'm done sacrificing myself just so you can feel better. Her lips parted as if to reply, but no words came out. I turned toward the door, my chest rising with a strength I hadn't known before. Ethan followed, his hand warm against mine. As we stepped outside, the scratch on the SUV caught my eye again, the scar gleaming in the sunlight. But for once, it didn't make me feel powerless. Instead, it felt symbolic, like the mark of a battle fought and won. The SUV still stood, strong and unbroken, just like me. I slid into the driver's seat, the leather hugging me like armor. Ethan climbed in beside me, and for the first time in years, I drove away from my mother's house without the weight of their voices dragging me down. Because now, they knew, and I would never let them forget.
The moment the insult left her mouth, the entire table fell silent. Harper leaned back in her chair, swirling her drink like she was delivering a TED Talk. Some women are single because no one wants a struggling woman, she said, loud enough for the waiter 2 tables away to hear. The laughter around the table hit me like a slap. I froze mid-bite, my pulse jumping in my throat. My brother Mark didn't stop her. He just smirked into his napkin like this was normal family entertainment. I felt heat rush to my cheeks, but I kept my chin up. I'm not struggling, I said calmly. Harper lifted a brow. Sweetheart, you're still trying to get that little consulting thing off the ground. Little consulting
Thing.
My stomach tightened. Before I could speak, the guy sitting next to my cousins, Harper's friend's date, glanced at her with a confused frown. Tall, sharp jaw, navy blazer, around 30. He looked like he belonged at a board meeting, not at a messy family dinner. He studied me for a beat, then leaned forward. "You run a consulting agency?" I nodded. "What type?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Startup branding and product launches." His eyes flicked with recognition like he actually understood what that meant. Harper didn't.
She scoffed.
"Nat, come on. Don't oversell it. It's not like you fund real companies." The guy turned toward her slowly. "Why do you assume she doesn't?" Harper blinked. "Because she's still figuring her life out." "My life is fine," I said, steady this time. He smiled at me, just a small, knowing one. "I believe you." The table shifted uncomfortably. I could almost feel Harper rewiring her next insult. She didn't get the chance. The waiter walked up with a tray, and Harper used the distraction to lean toward me and whisper just loud enough. "Men want women who are stable, Nat. Not ones who are chasing dreams." My grip tightened on my fork. I didn't plan a comeback. I didn't need one. Because the man beside my cousins cleared his throat, sat up straight, and spoke before she could continue. "For the record," he said, his voice calm but confident, "I didn't come here as anyone's date." Everyone froze. He pointed gently toward me. "I came because she is my investor. She funds my entire startup." Every jaw dropped. Even my fork paused midair. His voice didn't waver. "And just so everyone understands, without her, my company wouldn't exist." Heat rushed to my face, not embarrassment this time, but a fierce, sudden pride. Harper's expression cracked like glass. Mark stared at me like I'd just revealed I lived a double life. And for the first time in years, the room wasn't laughing at me. They were stunned by me. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Revenge had just begun. For a full 5 seconds, nobody said a thing. Not even Harper. Her jaw hung open like she'd just been hit with a bucket of cold water. I watched her eyes dart between me and the man who had just publicly vaporized her insult. He sat calmly, tapping his thumb against his glass. "Sorry if I caused a scene," he said lightly. "I just thought accuracy mattered." Accuracy. I nearly laughed. Harper blinked rapidly, recovering. "Wait, hold on," she said, forcing a smile that was pulling at the seams. "You're what exactly? Her coworker?" "No," he answered politely. "I'm her business partner. My name's Lucas." Mark choked on his soda. "Your partners?" Lucas nodded. "Natalie is one of my angel investors. She believed in my idea when people with bigger checkbooks didn't." The silence in the room twisted into disbelief. My mom whispered, "Angel investor?" Dad squinted at me like he was trying to solve a math problem he'd never studied. "Natalie, you never told us." "You never asked," I said, staying calm. Because this right here, this moment was the reason I had stayed quiet all these years. The reason I didn't update them every month about my business, my clients, or my income. Every time I gave them a piece of good news, they measured it against their expectations. Every time I shared something small, they treated it like it was nothing. So, eventually, I stopped sharing. Lucas slid his chair an inch closer, not intimate, just respectful, like he had my back. She invested early, too. It helped us land our prototype. And once we launch, she's getting a share worth 10 times what she put in. The air thickened. My aunt nearly dropped her fork. 10 times. Harper stared at me like I'd been lying about my entire identity. You fund startups?" "I fund some," I corrected. "I consult for others. Lucas's company is just the latest one." But you never said anything," she sputtered. I gave her a small, polite smile, the kind she usually aimed at me. I didn't think it mattered. Her cheeks reddened instantly. Mark crossed his arms. "Why hide it? We're family." I finally looked him straight in the eyes. "Because anytime I mentioned my work, you two treated it like a hobby." The table went painfully quiet. Mom opened her mouth but closed it again. Dad took a long sip of water. Harper stared at the tablecloth like it had personally betrayed her. Meanwhile, Lucas just watched me with a soft, supportive expression, Like he knew this wasn't about investment or business. This was about reclaiming the part of me they had stepped on for years. Then Harper tried again. "So," she said, voice too sweet, "since when do you make enough money to invest in anything?" Lucas cut in before I could even react. "Since long before tonight, clearly." The sharpness in his tone made my stomach flip. He wasn't being rude, just straightforward, and honestly, it was about time someone spoke to her that way. Still, I touched his arm gently. "It's okay, Lucas." He relaxed instantly at my voice. I turned back to Harper. "I reinvested my profits," I said simply. "That's all." The teenager at the end of the table, my cousin's daughter, looked at me like I'd just turned into a superhero. Her mom whispered something to her, probably about hard work or success. It felt surreal. For years, I had been the quiet one, the one building in the background, the one they dismissed. Now they were finally realizing I wasn't figuring myself out. I had found myself already. Harper's voice broke through the tension. "Well, good for you," she said weakly, the confidence drained from her tone. "I mean, if it makes you happy." "It does," I said. "A lot." Lucas nodded. "And she's incredible at what she does." My heart thudded a little faster at his words. Mark muttered, "Wow," under his breath, looking almost embarrassed for how he'd treated me before. The power in the room had shifted, and everyone felt it, Harper included. This wasn't the final blow, not yet. But the revenge? It was well underway. Harper stayed quiet for the first time all night, staring into her drink like it held the answers to life. The rest of the table shifted awkwardly, pretending to focus on their food, but everyone was really focused on one thing.
Me.
The person they had underestimated for years. Lucas leaned closer, not enough to make it romantic, just enough that I felt supported. "Do you want to step outside for some air?" he asked softly. I shook my head.
No.
"I'm good. I'm done running from people who look down on me." He smiled. "That's what I figured." Dad finally cleared his throat. "Natalie, why didn't you tell us you were doing all this?" Here it came, the moment they expected me to apologize for their assumptions. I sat back and looked at everyone clearly. Because every time I mentioned anything about my business, the response was always the same: doubt, jokes, or silence. I stopped sharing because I was tired of defending my choices. Mom's eyes softened. "We didn't mean to make you feel unsupported." "Intent doesn't erase the impact," I said gently, not harshly. "I just wanted a chance to build something without feeling judged for it." Lucas nodded subtly beside me, that familiar look of respect in his eyes. Harper's voice cut in, shaky this time. "So, you're really an investor? Like, officially?" "Officially," I confirmed. "And your business is actually successful?" I gave her the smallest smile. "Very." She blinked, clearly uncomfortable. "Well, good for you. I mean that." But she didn't. Not really. And that was fine. Because the moment she stood up to collect her purse, trying to exit the conversation gracefully, Lucas spoke again. Calm, confident, and devastatingly precise. "Before you go, Harper," he said, "I just want to add something." She froze mid-step. "You told this whole table that men don't want a woman who's struggling. But from where I'm standing, the only struggling tonight came from your assumptions." The table collectively inhaled. Harper opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Lucas wasn't done. "Natalie isn't behind. She isn't lesser. She's the reason my business is alive. She saw potential in me before anyone else did." His voice stayed respectful, but firm. "And if you think that's something to mock, then you don't understand success." My chest tightened. Not with embarrassment, but with something bright and warm. For years, I had defended myself alone. Hearing someone else say those words felt like the universe finally balanced itself. Harper's face flushed a deep red. "I didn't mean to." "You did," Lucas replied, but without anger. "Just, maybe next time, rethink what you call struggling. Some people are building, not failing." Harper sank slowly back into her chair, defeated. My brother Mark rubbed the back of his neck. "Nat, seriously, I'm sorry. We've underestimated you. I nodded, accepting it without bitterness. I know, but I'm not interested in staying the family underdog anymore. The teenager down the table grinned. Honestly, Aunt Nat, that was awesome. Her words made the whole table finally breathe again. Light laughter broke the tension. Lucas turned toward me fully now. You know, he said quietly, you're stronger than you realize. My pulse skipped. I just got tired of being quiet. You were never meant to be quiet, he said. My heart thudded. He wasn't flirting, it wasn't the moment for that. But the sincerity in his voice made something shift inside me. Mark leaned forward. So, what's this startup you two are working on? Lucas brightened instantly. A logistics optimization platform for small suppliers. Natalie helped us build our pitch deck, branding, market entry plan. She practically rebuilt the entire company identity. She even negotiated our seed meeting next month. The table stared at me again. Mom smiled nervously. We honestly didn't realize how much you were doing. I know, I said. But it's okay. Tonight wasn't about proving anything. Lucas glanced sideways at me. It kind of turned into that, though. I laughed under my breath. A little. What Harper intended as humiliation had turned into something else entirely. Clarity. I had my voice back. I had respect. I had confidence that didn't come from validation, but from years of hard work finally being seen. And as I looked around the table, I knew part 4, the final shift, was coming. A shift where I would make the ending mine. A happy one. One they would never forget. The tension in the restaurant had dissolved into a strange mix of embarrassment, admiration, and curiosity. People who had barely acknowledged my work before were now leaning in, asking questions, wanting to know more. It felt surreal, but not overwhelming, freeing. Harper kept her eyes low, stirring her drink like it was suddenly the most fascinating thing she'd ever seen. Every once in a while, she peeked up at me, as if trying to figure out how everything flipped so fast. I didn't rub anything in. Revenge didn't need to be loud. It had already happened the moment the truth hit the table. Lucas leaned toward me with a warm smile. So, how are you feeling now? I breathed out slowly. Lighter. I've spent years letting them define me. Tonight felt like taking my name back. He tapped his fingers gently against the table. You didn't take it back. You reclaimed it. Something soft pulled at my chest. I'd met Lucas through work, respected him professionally, admired his determination, but tonight I saw another version of him. Protective. Steady. Someone who didn't speak for me, but stood with me. My mom cleared her throat, drawing my attention. Natalie, we owe you an apology. I straightened, waiting. We should have believed in you more, she said, her voice gentle but honest. You've grown into someone remarkable. We're proud of you, truly. Dad nodded beside her. We just didn't realize how much you were carrying on your own. I softened. I wasn't carrying it alone. I had people who believed in me, even when you didn't. Lucas nudged my shoulder. Happy to be on that list. The table chuckled lightly. Even Mark finally seemed to get it. Nat, I never meant to make fun of your work. I guess I didn't understand it. But I do now. And I'm proud of you too. I nodded, accepting his words. Thank you. Then came the last piece. Harper. She sat very still, her shoulders tense, her confidence cracked. When she finally looked at me, there was no smirk, just regret. Natalie, she started quietly. I'm sorry. The table went still again. She swallowed hard. What I said earlier wasn't fair. I shouldn't have spoken about you like that. I don't know why I felt the need to compare or criticize. I guess I thought success had to look a certain way and yours didn't fit my mold. She exhaled shakily. But obviously, I was wrong. Her words weren't dramatic. They weren't perfect. But they were honest. And sometimes, honesty is enough. I appreciate that, I said softly. Harper nodded, almost relieved. Lucas leaned back, smiling slightly at me. That was handled beautifully. I didn't want drama, I murmured. Just respect. And you got it, he said. Every bit of it. The waiter dropped the bill off at the table, but before anyone could fight over it, Lucas slid his card onto the tray. My eyes widened. Lucas, this is a family dinner. You don't have to.
He shook his head gently.
I want to. Consider it a small celebration of your big reveal.
He winked.
Plus, it'll be a business write-off. The table laughed. Harper even cracked a smile. As everyone stood to leave, Mom hugged me tight. Dad ruffled my hair like he hadn't done in years. Mark squeezed my shoulder and promised to stop underestimating me. Then, as the family filtered out into the cool night air, Lucas walked beside me. You know, he said casually, I didn't lie back there. I glanced at him. About what? You aren't just my investor. He slipped his hands into his pockets. You're the reason I didn't quit. You believed in my idea, and you pushed me forward. I respect you more than you know. Warmth spread through my chest, deeper than anything that came from winning an argument. Thank you, I whispered. He stopped just outside the restaurant door, looking at me with that steady, genuine expression. And if you're open to it, he said, voice softer now, maybe we could get dinner sometime. Just us. No family. No pitches. My heart flipped. I smiled. Real, confident, and finally unburdened. I'd like that. And right there, under the glow of the streetlights, I realized something. The real revenge wasn't humiliating anyone. It was proving, quietly, gracefully, that I was never the weak one in the room. I had built my own life, my own success, my own future, and it was only just beginning. The fluorescent lights above me buzzed like angry bees, and every step felt heavier than the last. The ER hallway smelled of disinfectant and exhaustion. My badge read Emily Carter, RN, though lately it felt more like machine, property of Grant Memorial Hospital. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I'd been on my second double shift, 40 hours with only scattered minutes of sleep. My hands trembled as I tried to start in 4-line for a pale teenager who wouldn't stop apologizing for being a bother. I smiled, even though my chest burned and my vision blurred. You're not a bother, sweetie, I murmured. The next thing I knew, the floor rushed up to meet me. When I woke, the room was spinning. A nurse I didn't know was checking my pulse. You fainted in Tria, she said gently. We tried to reach your emergency contact. My throat tightened. My dad. She hesitated, eyes flicking away.
Yeah.
He, said you're not his problem. Her words hit harder than the fall. The sound of the monitors faded behind the pounding in my ears. I forced a smile, swallowing the shame clawing at my throat. Then he told the truth. I whispered. See, my father, Richard Carter, used to be a man of importance. Big house, bigger ego, and a pride problem large enough to choke a city. When my mom died 5 years ago, he replaced love with alcohol and blame. Said I was the reason she worked herself to death. Said I didn't belong in his house if I couldn't make something of myself. So I left. I scrubbed hospital floors before I ever got to treat patients. I earned every degree without his help. I stopped waiting for the day he'd be proud. But that night, lying under the harsh ER light, something cracked inside me. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was awakening. I realized I'd been fighting for a kind of love that didn't exist anymore. Maybe never did. 2 days later, I returned to work. My body screamed, but I needed the hours. Bills didn't care about bruised pride or broken hearts. Patience did. And honestly, saving others distracted me from the one person I couldn't save, him. Then later that week, my phone buzzed at 2 a.m. The name flashing on the screen froze me.
Dad.
The text read, Need your help. Emergency. I stared at it for a long moment, my pulse calm, almost too calm. I remembered the hospital call, the rejection, the way my voice cracked when I asked for him. So I replied with one simple mark, a period. I set my phone down and went back to charting vitals. For the first time in years, I didn't cry. I just let go. What I didn't know then was that silence, would echo louder than any words I could have said. And before long, my father would realize exactly what it felt like to be the one left unanswered. But life had a strange way of circling back, and the storm that was coming would drag both of us into a reckoning we couldn't escape. The morning after that message, I walked into Grant Memorial with my hair tied back, coffee in hand, and no trace of hesitation left in my step. My body was still weak, but my will? Unshakable. I'd built a life brick by brick without a single ounce of help from the man who called himself my father. Nurses nodded as I passed through the corridor. "You back at it already?" One of them, Maya, asked. "Yeah," I said with a tired grin. "Guess the hospital doesn't run on sympathy." Truth was, that single text from him kept replaying in my head. "Need your help. Emergency." The same man who couldn't pick up the phone when his daughter collapsed now wanted me. For what?
Money?
Favors? Pity?
No.
Not anymore. By lunch, the gossip had started circulating. Apparently, Richard Carter's company, Carter and Sons Construction, was in deep financial trouble. Lawsuits, debts, unpaid wages. His empire, the same one he'd always said I'd never be part of, was crumbling. Maya leaned over the nurse's station, whispering, "You hear about the Carters? The whole company's a mess. His investors are jumping ship." I forced a neutral smile. Guess karma doesn't take lunch breaks. That night, as I was clocking out, my phone rang again. Same number.
Same man.
I let it buzz until it went silent. Then a voicemail appeared. Curiosity 1. I pressed play. "Emily, it's your father." His voice sounded nothing like the booming, arrogant tone I grew up fearing. It was rough, almost small. "I made mistakes. Too many. I need you to come see me. Please." My chest tightened, but not out of sympathy, out of memory. I remembered being 16, crying outside his locked study door because I'd failed a math exam. I remembered him saying, "You'll never handle real life." Now, he couldn't handle it. And for the first time, I didn't feel weak. I felt in control. I didn't call back. I didn't need to. Instead, I focused on my patients. I helped an elderly woman walk for the first time in months. I stitched up a scared kid who said I reminded him of his mom. In their eyes, I saw the family I built for myself, not the one that abandoned me. But fate wasn't done testing me yet. 3 days later, a luxury car pulled into the hospital parking lot. The driver stepped out, holding a sleek briefcase. "Miss Emily Carter?" I nodded cautiously. "I'm Mr. Caldwell, your father's attorney. He asked me to deliver this." He handed me a thick folder and left before I could respond. Inside were legal documents, transfer of ownership, company shares, and a handwritten note on old letterhead. "Emily, I've lost everything. But the company, it's still yours if you want it. You were always the one meant to lead." I just couldn't see it.
I'm sorry.
I stared at the papers, disbelief flooding me. He wasn't asking for help, he was surrendering. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment with the city lights flickering outside. The same man who'd said I was worthless was now giving me the remnants of his empire. I could have thrown it all away out of spite. But deep down, I realized revenge didn't have to be loud. Sometimes the quietest victories were the most powerful. So, I made a choice. I didn't reply to his message. I didn't show up at his mansion. Instead, I opened my laptop and started filing the paperwork. I renamed the company Carter Renewal Group. New mission, new values. A construction firm that helped rebuild community hospitals and shelters. The kind of work that actually mattered. By the next morning, I was officially the CEO of the company that once rejected me. And my father? He would soon find out what true strength looked like. The kind built from rejection, silence, and self-worth. Because the girl he cast aside didn't just survive. She rose. The following week, I stood outside the glass doors of Carter Renewal Group, the morning sunlight gleaming against the silver logo that now carried my name. The same building my father used to walk into with his tailored suits and expensive arrogance now belonged to me. Inside, a few old employees whispered when they saw me. One of the senior engineers, Mr. Grant, looked stunned. "Emily Carter? You're the new owner?" "Not owner," I corrected with a calm smile. I'm the new CEO, and things are about to change. The air in the room shifted. For years, those halls had echoed with my father's voice, barking orders, dismissing people like they were tools. I wasn't going to run it that way. I gathered the entire team in the main conference room and spoke clearly. I know this company's been through chaos, I began. But from now on, we're rebuilding the right way. Fair pay, honest work, no corner cutting. We'll build hospitals, schools, and homes for people who actually need them. No more greed, just purpose. Applause broke out. And as I looked around at those faces that once feared my father, I realized something. This was the revenge I didn't know I wanted. Not his downfall. My rise. A few days later, I got an unexpected visitor. My father. He arrived in a wrinkled shirt, his hair thinner, eyes hollow. Security buzzed my office, asking if they should let him in. I hesitated, just for a heartbeat, then said, yes. Let him see what he lost. He stepped in quietly, his gaze drifting over the office that once belonged to him. You redecorated, he muttered. Clean slates deserve new paint, I replied coldly. He nodded, lips pressed tight. You didn't answer my calls. Or my messages. I leaned back in my chair. You told a hospital I wasn't your problem when I was lying unconscious. Consider this professional symmetry. He swallowed hard. I was angry. I was proud. I didn't know what I was doing. No, Dad, I said, standing. You knew. You just didn't care, until it cost you something. He opened his mouth, but I stopped him with a raised hand. You taught me to survive without you. And I did. Now, this company, your legacy, is mine. But I won't run it to hurt you. I'll run it to heal what you broke. His eyes shimmered with regret. Emily, I'm sorry. I nodded once. Good. But an apology doesn't rebuild bridges you burned. He turned to leave, and for the first time in years, I saw him not as my father, but as a man who had finally realized what it meant to lose everything he once controlled. That night, as I locked up, Maya called from the hospital. Guess who's back in the ER? My heart skipped. Don't tell me. Yeah, she sighed. Your dad. High blood pressure. Stress. He's been sitting here alone for hours. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the office lights flickering against the skyline. He wasn't my responsibility, but a small voice inside whispered, You're better than what he made you. So I went. When I arrived, he looked fragile under the hospital's fluorescent light, the same kind I'd once collapsed beneath. His eyes met mine, startled. You came. I'm still a nurse, I said simply. And you're still a patient. He chuckled weakly. Even now, you find a reason to care. I adjusted his fore and replied softly, That's what makes us different. For the first time, he smiled, not the proud grin of a rich man, but the broken smile of a father who finally understood what love looked like after losing it. Before I left, he whispered, Thank you. I didn't say a word. But when I walked out, something heavy lifted off my chest. Forgiveness wasn't weakness, it was freedom. The next morning, I returned to work, ready to lead, ready to prove that the girl who once collapsed in exhaustion had become the woman no one could break again. The world had turned full circle, and this time, it turned in my favor. 3 months later, the sun rose over the new Carter Renewal headquarters, and for the first time in years, the future didn't feel heavy. Our projects were thriving, clinics rebuilt, community homes finished, and over 100 new workers hired. Every wall of the company carried the kind of pride my father had once destroyed with greed. I arrived early that morning, the city still waking up outside the glass walls. My assistant, Claire, entered with a hesitant smile. There's someone here to see you. Says it's personal. I didn't need to ask who. I just said, send him in. My father walked in slowly, a cane in one hand, his expression softer than I'd ever seen. He looked smaller somehow, like life had finally stripped away the armor. You've done more with this company in 3 months than I did in 30 years, he said quietly. I smiled faintly. That's because I stopped trying to impress anyone. He nodded, glancing at the framed photo on my desk, Mom, me, and him, before everything fell apart. Your mother would have been proud. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Not the bitter kind, but the fragile kind that comes before healing. Then he said something I didn't expect. I sold my house. I don't have much left, but I want to help. However you'll let me. It was the first time I'd seen him, without pride or pretense. Just a man trying to fix what he'd broken. I stood, walked around the desk, and handed him a visitor's badge. Start by volunteering at one of our sites. We're building a free clinic downtown. They need someone to coordinate logistics. His eyes widened, surprised but grateful. You'd trust me with that? I trust anyone who's willing to rebuild, I said softly. That's what we do here. He smiled, and for the first time since I was a kid, it reached his eyes. As he left my office, I looked out the window at the city below, the same streets where I once dragged myself through double shifts, unseen and exhausted. The same world that had looked down on me now watched me rise. Later that day, we held a press event for the clinic launch. Cameras flashed, microphones crowded in, and reporters called my name. Miss Carter, how did this all start? I smiled at the question. It started when someone told me I wasn't their problem, I said calmly. Turns out, the best thing you can do for people who reject you is to succeed anyway. Applause rippled through the crowd. I saw my father standing in the back, no longer the powerful man everyone used to fear, but a man humbled and proud of his daughter. He didn't push forward. He just stood there, hands folded, watching with quiet respect. That night, after everyone left, I stayed behind in my office. I opened my phone and looked through the old messages, every unanswered call, every apology I'd ignored. Then, for closure, I typed a single message. You were right, Dad. I did learn how to handle real life. And for the first time, he replied immediately. I'm glad you did, sweetheart. I stared at the screen, smiling through tears I didn't expect. Revenge hadn't destroyed him, it had transformed me. Because the best revenge wasn't watching him fall. It was standing tall, on my own, with kindness he couldn't take credit for. And that night, as I locked up my office and stepped into the cool city air, I realized something simple but powerful. Sometimes the people who abandon you become the reason you become unstoppable.